Enjoy this narrated virtual tour of cargo and transport aircraft displayed at the National Museum of the United States Air Force located on the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Southwest Ohio. See the technological progression that resulted in today's United States Air Force ability to maintain supply lines to forward bases and to assist civilian emergency relief missions by transporting humanitarian aid. It opens with the World War II Beech Traveler and covers other aircraft through the Boeing C-17 Globemaster III. One of the most distinctive U.S. Army Air Force aircraft was the Beech C-43 Traveler, a light transport biplane with negative or backward staggered wings. Early in World War II, the need for a compact executive-type transport or courier aircraft became apparent. The Army ordered the Traveler, a military version based on the Beech commercial Model 17s. The aircraft on display is painted as a UC-43 assigned to the 8th Air Force in England in 1943. Dubbed the Bamboo Bomber by pilots who flew them, the Cessna UC-78 Bobcat was a military version of the commercial Cessna T-50 light transport. Originally, the U.S. Army Air Corps first ordered these as multi-engine advanced trainers designated as AT-8s. Cessna built 33 AT-8s, then production continued under the designation AT-17, reflecting a change in the engine and equipment. In 1942, the Air Force adopted the Bobcat as a light personnel transport, designating them UC-78s. The Curtiss C46 Commando was developed from the unproven CW-20 commercial aircraft that first flew in March 1940. Commandos gained fame transporting war material over the hump from India to China. After the Japanese closed the Burma Road, the Commando carried more cargo than the famous C-47, offering better performance at higher altitudes. However, these difficult flying conditions required extensive maintenance, resulting in a relatively high loss rate. The C46D on display is painted as a C-46 flying the hump in 1944. Few aircraft were as well known or so widely used or used as long as the Douglas C-47 SkyTrain. This aircraft, affectionately nicknamed the Goonie Bird, was adapted from the commercial Douglas DC-3 airliner. The Douglas C-47 SkyTrain carried personnel and cargo around the globe. They also towed troop-carrying gliders, dropped paratroopers into enemy territory and air-evacuated sick or wounded patients. A SkyTrain could carry 28 passengers, 18 to 22 fully equipped paratroopers, or about 6,000 pounds of cargo, or 18 stretchers plus 3 medical personnel. On March 22, 1945, Lieutenant Barry used this aircraft to snatch a glider filled with wounded soldiers at Remagen, Germany. The World War II airlift experience revealed the need for large-capacity cargo aircraft that could be loaded from ground level. Fairchild C82 Packet featured tricycle landing gear, high wings and high tail booms, allowing vehicles to approach it from any side while its large rear doors open like a clamshell, which made loading easier. It was used primarily for transporting cargo and troops, and it could tow gliders. The C-82A on display flew with the Alaskan Air Command in the 1950s, and it carries the red Arctic markings used for high visibility. Boeing C-97 Stratofreighter is a cargo version of the B-29 Superfortress. Boeing introduced the KC97 tanker version with the flying boom refueling system in 1950. The Air Force gradually replaced the slower Stratofreighters with Boeing KC-135 jet tankers after 1956. The Air Force retired its last KC-97 in 1973, but others remained in use with the Air Force Reserve and Air National Guard as tankers or search and rescue aircraft. The aircraft on display was flown by the 160th Air Refueling Group of the Ohio Air National Guard. The Lockheed C-121 Constellation was a radar picket version of the Air Force C-121 passenger airplane. The Constellation provided early warning by detecting and tracking enemy aircraft with electronic gear in the large radomes above and below its fuselage. In Southeast Asia, these unarmed radar aircraft aided in downing enemy planes, directed aircraft to aerial refueling tankers, and guided rescue planes to down pilots. While over the Gulf of Tonkin, this C-121 guided a U.S. fighter into position to destroy a MiG-21, the first time a weapons controller aboard an airborne radar aircraft directed a successful attack on an enemy plane. Fairchild C-119 flying boxcar, developed from the World War II Fairchild C82, was designed to carry cargo, personnel, litter patients and mechanized equipment, and to drop cargo and troops by parachute. The flying boxcar made its initial flight in November 1947, with more than 1,100 built by the time production ceased in 1955. The U.S. Air Force used the airplane extensively during the Korean War, with many supplied to the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps and to the Air Forces of Canada, Belgium, Italy, and India. The C-119 on display was specially modified for the mid-air retrieval of space capsules. On August 19, 1960, this aircraft made the world's first mid-air recovery of a space capsule when it snagged the parachute that was lowering the Discovery 14 satellite at 8,000 feet altitude, 360 miles southwest of Honolulu, Hawaii. Douglas's C-124 Globemaster II provided heavy airlift services during the Korean and the Southeast Asian Wars. Other important airlifts conducted by Globemaster IIs included resupply missions to Antarctica, refugee evacuation in the Congo and mercy flights to Morocco, Chile and elsewhere throughout the world following floods and other natural disasters. It featured clamshell loading doors and hydraulic ramps in the nose and an elevator under the aft fuselage, enabling it to handle bulky cargo such as tanks, field guns, bulldozers and trucks. It could also be converted into a transport capable of carrying 200 fully equipped soldiers or 127 litter patients and their attendants in its double-deck cabin. The aircraft on display was assigned to the 165th Tactical Airlift Group of the Georgia Air National Guard. This Convair NC-131 is a one-of-a-kind in-flight simulator, primarily used to study how a designed aircraft would handle before building an expensive full-scale prototype. It first flew in 1970 and its first research project simulated the B-1 bomber's flying characteristics. During its long and successful career, it simulated many military and NASA aircraft, including the X-40, Tacit Blue, Space Shuttle, B-2, YF-23 and C-17. Fairchild C-123K Provider was a short-range assault transport used for airlifting troops and cargo to and from small, unprepared airstrips. The Provider became an essential part of Air Force airlifts during the Southeast Asia War, where it flew primarily as an in-theater airlifter, but also flew as a low-level defoliant sprayer. The Provider on display saw extensive service during the Vietnam War, where the aircraft took almost 600 hits in combat, earning its patches name for the damage repairs that covered it. Lockheed's C-130 Hercules was designed as an assault transport, capable of operating from unpaved hastily prepared airstrips, and made its first flight in August 1954. By 1976, more than 1,200 C-130s were ordered, including aircraft equipped for radar weather mapping, reconnaissance, mid-air space capsule recovery, search and rescue, ambulance service, drone launching, and mid-air helicopter refueling. It can transport up to 92 combat troops with their gear, or 45,000 pounds of cargo. The Hercules can deliver its cargo by parachute or by low-altitude ground cable extraction when necessary. 28 C-130s were converted into side-firing gunships primarily for night attacks against ground targets. This AC-130A was modified at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio as the gunship prototype and was initially equipped with 420mm and 47.62mm multi-barreled guns, a searchlight and target sensors. After testing in Southeast Asia in 1967, it was used as a test bed for additional armament sensors and fire control development. The turboprop Douglas C-133 Cargo Master was developed to fulfill a U.S. Air Force requirement for a large-capacity strategic cargo aircraft. C-133s began flying military air transport service air routes throughout the world in 1958. With its rear loading and side loading doors, the Cargo Master could handle a wide variety of military cargo. The most significant was its ability to transport ballistic missiles, such as the Atlas, less costly and quicker than by trailer over highways. The Cargo Master on display established a world record for propeller-driven aircraft when it carried a cargo payload of 117,900 pounds to an altitude of 10,000 feet. The tilt-wing Chance Vought LTV XC-142A was built in the 1960s to explore the suitability of vertical short takeoff and landing transport. Such a craft would permit rapid movement of troops and supplies into and out of unprepared areas. They were tested extensively by the Army, Navy, Air Force, and NASA. Although it did not go into production, it foreshadowed future operational transports like the V-22 Osprey. This is the only remaining XC-142A. Lockheed's C-141 Starlifter's original requirement called for a fast strategic transport aircraft that could serve as a workhorse for rapidly moving U.S. troops anywhere in the world. It became operational in April 1965, but it quickly became apparent that the aircraft had much greater potential. The most significant Starlifter mission was flown by the aircraft on display, the Hanoi Taxi. It airlifted the first American prisoners of war to freedom, transporting them from Geo Lam Airport in Hanoi on February 12, 1973. The Hanoi Taxi flew 2 missions into Hanoi, transporting 78 POWs and 2 civilians to the Philippines, and flew 4 missions from the Philippines to the United States carrying 76 ex-prisoners of war. The Hanoi Taxi continued flying, logging more than 40,000 hours and undergoing many changes over 3 decades. Entering service in 1993, Boeing C-17 Globemaster III is the U.S. Air Force's newest, most versatile cargo aircraft. It is capable of rapid strategic delivery of troops and all types of cargo to main operating bases or directly to small, austere airfields. It can also perform tactical airlift and airdrop missions or transport litters and ambulatory patients during aeromedical evacuations. The Globemaster III can take off and land on runways as short as 3,500 feet and only 90 feet wide. The displayed aircraft is the prototype C-17 that supported many other flight and propulsion test programs for the Air Force, NASA and others. Bell Boeing CV-22 Osprey is a tilt-rotor aircraft that merges the vertical takeoff, hover, and vertical landing qualities of a helicopter with the long-range fuel efficiency and speed characteristics of a turboprop aircraft. Its mission is to conduct long-range infiltration, exfiltration, and resupply missions for Special Operations Forces. The museum's Osprey was originally built as a pre-production aircraft for the Navy, modified into a CV-22B, and was designated an additional Air Force test asset. I hope you enjoyed this narrated virtual tour of the Air Force Museum's cargo and transport aircraft. If you would like to tour other galleries in this series, you will find convenient links in the description section below this video. Here are YouTube suggested links to videos on a similar topic that you may want to view.